So, as the title kind of notes, what do you do with your scrap wood as a woodworker? Today is February 26, 2024, and believe it or not, in upstate New York, it was like 54 degrees today. So, back to the topic at hand. What I do with all of my used leftovers, scrap wood as you may call it, is I like to build birdhouses. Did you know that the number one, well, maybe not the number one, but one of the highest reasons for bird population declination is lack of housing? Building birdhouses will definitely help them make babies and prosper. So what I do is I kind of save every bit of wood that I use when I make other things, and then it's kind of fun. It's like a puzzle. You try to figure out how big they need to be and the sizes, and like that center one is a bluebird house, the two smaller ones are wren houses, and I have a little bit of scrap left yet, and I'm gonna make another wren house today. It's actually tonight, it's after 5 p.m. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I've got this pile of scrap wood from various projects. Guaranteed, it's kind of small, so it's going to be a wren house, but guaranteed I can put something together, hang it outside. And truth be told, I have already just over 12 birdhouses around the house on my property, but I'll spread them around. And believe it or not, one of the birdhouses, a family of flying squirrels moved into. And I noticed it in the wintertime. There shouldn't have been any birds in there. And I saw some, I don't know, some organic matter hanging out of the hole. So I checked it out, and when I did, a flying squirrel come running out of the hole, jumped on the tree, and kind of took off. So you never know who you're helping, and if you're any kind of a person that's into nature and, you know, helping the habitat, this is definitely a worthwhile project. So I'm not going to lie, I've already kind of seen a basic design in this. This bigger piece, and this is for the most part 3/4 pine. And this bigger piece is going to be the back. So what I was thinking is, and again, the shape is, I don't know if you've heard the old adage, house wrens will nest in anything. So I'm just going to kind of put some things together here and kind of dry fit them. And I'm liking this. Then we'll trim this piece down to fit. We'll put our bottom piece in, and we're going to have to cut a little angle on here to match up with this. And then we'll put another piece across the top, which is going to be down here. Maybe one of these, that'll look cool, huh? To deflect water. And then we'll put our hole as high as we can get it so that the bird doesn't have any issues getting in. And it doesn't matter what kind of saw you've got. You can use a jigsaw, you can use a table saw, you can use a circular saw if you're really careful. You can use a scroll saw, you can use a miter saw, and just, you know, I try to make it look kind of uniform. Like this one here, I left a slot up top. I could have easily trimmed these down, but this slot is going to allow the heat to escape. Guaranteed there'll be a house wren living in this coming summer. I tend to use a hardwood if I've got it, and screw it to the top and bottom to keep these secure so they don't kind of pop apart. Drill a couple of holes here, and I'll mount this outside, and like I said, guaranteed there'll be a house wren in it this summer. And I promise I'll make another video showing them bringing materials in here to nest. Now, what I usually do is I will take some of the sawdust from my projects and just put a little bit in here. I hate to see them work more than they need to, but they usually, house wrens that is, will remove it, and they'll bring in their little sticks and they'll make their nest. Now, I use a wood safe glue Titebond 3 and pin nails. So these are all basically glued together and pin nailed. Crash. So what I'll wind up doing is, these are basically done, but they're not finished, so to speak. I'm going to blast a hole here and here, and here and here, and I'm going to put in some 1.5-inch sheetrock screws. And that's just going to ensure that if we have like a ton of wet weather or anything crazy, it's not going to fall apart and they're not going to lose their family. So as you may or may not know, house wrens don't need a ton of room to build their nests. And what we're going to do, and this is going to be a little tricky because it's at this angle, but what we're going to do is I'm going to put some Titebond 3. This stuff is really good. Not a ton of it, because you really don't need a ton of it. Make sure that your angles are all squared away. Alright, so what I did is I trimmed this front piece down to match the end of these angles, so that when I attach this to it, it's going to be a little bit of a kind of drip edge, so to speak. My entrance hole is going to go here, and then I'm going to most likely use this piece up here in New York. And just a heads up, this is 4.5 wide, and from the floor to the point of the ceiling, it's about 4 15/16, and the width, usable width, is like 4 7/8. I'm going to drill the hole for the entrance and put, I have other scrap wood around. I may look that up and see what I've got. But I'm going to drill the entrance hole prior to attaching all this, so that I don't have all kinds of nasties floating around in there. So I think I am going to use this piece as a roof. It covers the entire seam, and that's really all you need to worry about. So I'm going to, and they say for a house wren, the size of the hole should be about the size of a quarter to $0.50. I use 1 3/8 inches. I've seen them struggle with getting these 30-foot branches into their nest. So I like to make my entrance hole just a bit bigger. So we'll center this up, and we'll get this entrance hole high using this point, which you may or may not have. And all of this would be stuck in there, and you'd have to work it out, the hole. That's why I leave the bottom off until last. This is a Forstner bit, by the way. You can get these actually pretty cheap at Lowe's. It's a whole set for like 49 bucks. And in soft woods, they work really, really well. Alright, so that's going to work out fine. We don't have any rise in this piece here. And we're going to glue this up and nail it together, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're nailed together, we're glued together, and I'm going to put the quasi roof on, so to speak. And this will just give them a little bit of water runoff without going into the hole. So again, we're going to use our Titebond 3. And I guess you could do this without glue, but the glue is going to make this much more weatherproof and long-lasting. We'll put in some more pin nails. So if you're building one of these, don't put your wood with the grain going in this direction, especially if you're using pine or cedar, because what's going to happen is it's going to split, and your birdhouse is going to fall to the ground, and that's terrible for, can you see that? All right, and that's terrible for the birds when they have eggs or babies in it. Now, I use an 1/8 inch starter bit, or any drill bit's fine, to drill my pilot hole, so to speak. I've got a bunch of those, use them for other things, but 1/8 inch is a good hole size for putting your screws in. And like I said, I'm going to make another video when these little wrens get back here. It's obviously February, so it'll be a couple of months. And I highly recommend that you get this done and get these set up at least a month before their estimated arrival. Because if they show up early, they're going to be looking for a place to make a nest. And you want to be ready. They'll find any place. And the house wrens are so cool, but they'll find any place to make a nest. So now we're going to come over here to my sawdust pile. And you don't need to put a lot in here. Just a little bit to make it look like there's something going on. And they will more than likely excavate this. Bluebirds will do the same thing. But they get that feeling that somebody's in there. They get the opportunity to use this, and they're like, all right, we took it over. It's our place, babes. So it doesn't have to be pretty. It's a very cool use of scrap wood. And because they're house wrens, and I've got the Titebond 3 and a ton of pin nails, I probably won't put big screws to hold this together. I think this is going to be fine. The Titebond 3 is actually very formidable against the weather. It works very well. I've done some tests on this. I make cutting boards and charcuterie boards, and it works good. But yeah, take your scrap wood, make a habitat for your little feathered friends, and let them prosper. Give them a place to live. Give them a chance. It's so worthwhile. And buy a cheap pair of binoculars, put it, far away from the house that they'll be into it, and just photograph them, watch them, and check them out. It's very cool. All right, guys. It's getting late. It's almost dinner time. Well, it's 6 p.m. here in upstate New York, February 26, 2024. Over 50 degrees today. It was a beautiful day. So I wanted to do a little video on what I do with scrap wood. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Take care now.